Guys, tech crew upstairs, we're going to get going now soon, so just to give you a warning for recording purposes.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just going to ask Terry, have you got your crew, the auditors? Okay, no problem. The real boss of the organization had to step out for a minute and a half, so we're going to start as soon as she comes back. And thank you for those individuals that are signed in online from the audit. We'll get going about a minute and a half if that works.
No problem.
Where the hell is that going? Okay, I believe we're ready to go with our regular board meeting. And the first item of business is that I need a motion to accept the agenda as presented with one minor modification. We are changing the financial committee report to go up front so that we can have our auditors online and answer any questions and give our summary of our position. And then we will go into the regular progress of what was outlined in the agenda. Do I have a motion to move by Peter, seconded by Kevin? All in favor? Aye, motion carries. So first off, I would certainly like to thank Katie Hoskins and Andrew St. George for taking the time today to plug in through Zoom in a safe way to deal with the auditing report for the year for the English School District. I will turn to Steve to see if he has any commentary before the auditors present the...
No, my only comment would be to thank them for their hard work, and Terry and his department working hand in glove with these guys to make sure that everything is on track and that we're in good financial shape. So thank you to all.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to the auditors.
Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Hoskins. I have Andrew St. George with me as well, who is the manager on the file. So what we thought we would do is walk through our audit results document, and I believe that you should all have a copy of that in front of you. And so it'll just kind of highlight our audit and some of our procedures and kind of results of the procedures. So we'll just walk through that. And certainly if anyone has any questions, just let us know. So on page 2, we have our executive summary. And so our service and deliverables. So we were engaged to express an opinion on the consolidated financial statements of the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District in accordance with public sector accounting standards. And we'll also issue a written communication to management and those charged with governance if we note any significant deficiencies in internal controls. Certainly nothing comes to mind that we would bring forth today, but we usually do accumulate those throughout the audit and present them if there are any. We're also engaged to express an opinion on the financial statements of the affiliated entities who have their own separate boards. So we do have those listed there as well. So for the 2020 results, we expect to issue an unqualified opinion. We just have some final procedures that we have to perform, and those are listed under the open items, and I'll talk through those in a minute. Based on our review of the consolidated financial statements, we concur with the presentation and note disclosures. No fraud or illegal acts relating to management override were come to our attention, and we're not aware of anything that would bear on our independence. So from an areas of emphasis perspective, we used a materiality level of $15.4 million based on 2% of total expenses, which is in line with the Canadian auditing standards. We will talk in more detail a little bit about some of the areas of emphasis. So the areas that we focused on a little bit more because they're more significant or more subjective. And then looking forward, there was an implementation of a new system effective for the 2021 fiscal year. So we will perform procedures on that for the next fiscal year. And then we also just talk in the appendix on some new financial reporting developments. And then at the bottom of the page, there are open items. So these are just kind of standard procedures that we will perform up to the date that the board approves the financial statement. So we'll obtain a letter of representation for management. There are some final procedures and kind of quality control that we do on proofing the financial statements. We'll do subsequent events procedures up to today, and then our standard fraud inquiries, which we'll also do today. So the next couple of pages talk a little bit more detail about our areas of emphasis. And so I will turn it over to Andrew St. George to talk through those.
Thanks, Katie. And thanks, everyone. So our areas of audit emphasis are really where we spend the most of our time during the audit. And so we have them listed out here on the next few pages. The way the layout goes, on the right is the policy of the school district. On the left is the policy of the school district, followed by our significance is determined for the audit, as well as the subjectivity, so how much of it can really change based on professional judgment. Then finally, our procedures and the results for our audit. So the first item is government transfers, and these primarily relate to the transfers from the government of Newfoundland and Labrador for the district's operations. So this amount is highly significant because of the sheer dollar value of the amount. However, the subjectivity is relatively low, given that it's a pretty black and white number. And so our procedures include getting a confirmation of that amount, as well as doing cutoff testing to determine that it was recorded in the right fiscal period. And based on those procedures, we concur with management's presentation that everything's presented in a fair and reasonable manner. Next is tangible capital assets. So again, the policy is listed here on the left. The significance, again, is relatively high due to dollar value, but again, it's a very black and white policy, and so subjectivity is relatively low. Our procedures include confirmation of the amounts of capital transfers with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and then testing of additions and recalculation of depreciation balances. And based on this, we've determined that the amounts are reasonable in all material respects. On page 4, we have the post-employment benefits, which includes the compensated absences and termination benefits. Again, these policies are on the left. This is significant, again, due to dollar value, but also highly subjective, as very minimal changes in the inputs to these calculations can result in very big changes to the numbers. The district employs Morneau to perform an actuarial evaluation, which was completed last year and extrapolated to year-end this year. We engage our internal actuaries to review the assumptions and determine that they are appropriate for the purposes of the calculation. And then we do testing on the underlying data to verify that the calculation was determined over the appropriate population. Based on the results of our procedures, the post-employment benefits are reasonable in all material respects. Next on page 5 is the principles of consolidation. This is a new section this year. The school district has consolidated the international students as well as the Education Foundation. In addition to these, the school district has also included the school generated funds in the financial statements. This amount is somewhat significant and subjective just given the presentation and the relative judgment of the disclosures in accordance with the accounting policies, the accounting framework. And so in the prior year, these numbers weren't consolidated into the financial statements. However, given that the amount was discussed with management, it's been adjusted through the opening net assets in accordance with the accounting framework. And this is shown as a net asset impact of $7.192 million on the accumulated surplus net debt. We reviewed management's calculation of the consolidation and tested the school generated funds through bank confirmations of the cash balances, as well as detailed testing of revenue and expenses. And based on this, we concur with management's presentation and disclosure. Finally is the risk of management override as it relates to controls. And this is highly significant, just given anything related to management override should be presented to those charged with governance. In other words, the board. As well, it's somewhat subjective given that the amounts are up to professional judgment to determine if the entries are made appropriately. So in accordance with the Canadian auditing standards, we brainstorm and gather information to determine if there's any risk related to fraud as it relates to management override. Based on our current review for the year, we've determined no other fraud risk related to the file and that there's no indication of fraud based on our procedures. And with that, I'll hand it back to Katie to go through the timing of required communications.
Andrew. So moving on to our appendices. So Appendix A is timing of required communications. So this just lists kind of a long list of items that we're required to communicate to those charged with governance, and it'll tell you when we're required to communicate. So some of them have to happen annually, and then others will happen when an event occurs. So if fraud came to our attention, as an example, we would communicate that as it happened. We wouldn't wait until the meeting. So that's just meant to be a list so you're aware of when we will be communicating the various items. Then Appendix B is the required communications for the year-end audit. So this is our annual required communications. They're listed there. I will say there's nothing of significance there to note. As I mentioned, we expect to issue an unqualified opinion. We just have to complete those few remaining procedures, which are very standard in nature. We didn't have any disagreements with management. We felt like the audit went quite smoothly, and we're really thankful for all the help that we get from management. You know, especially in this environment that we're in right now, it could be challenging for sure, but we felt like it really went smoothly, and we're really grateful for that. Appendix C is our management rep letter. So this is for your review. This is what management will sign today, hopefully. If the board approves the financial statements today, the management will sign this rep letter, and this becomes part of our final procedures for our file. And then finally, Appendix D, oh, sorry, there's two more. Appendix D is our inquiries. So these are our fraud inquiries. And so we would put it to those charged with governance, the board members, if you're aware of any frauds or material misstatements or any alleged or suspected fraud. We would ask if there was anything that the board would like to bring forth right now with us. Certainly there's nothing from our perspective that we need to bring forth to you, but we would open it up if there was anything that anyone wanted to bring forward. Okay, and hearing silence, that's great. So I will just move on to the final appendix, which is Appendix E, financial reporting developments. So there is a new standard coming into play in the next couple of years around asset retirement obligations. And so there's not a whole lot of changes that have happened. This has been in the works for a number of years, except that because of COVID, the implementation date has changed. So it's been deferred for an additional year. So it will be applicable for the district's 2023 year end. This is going to be, a big change and a big section to get ready for. So we'll be working closely with management to guide them and help them through it, in the coming years as we get up to the 2023 year end. And that's it from our perspective, kind of a snapshot of our audit. As I said, we're quite pleased with how everything went. We're very thankful for management in making it very smooth for us this year. And we'd be more than happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Okay, any questions from around the table? Hearing and seeing none, I think that's then call for a motion coming from the chair of the Finance Committee.
We can do that now, or do you want to wait till later on? In the
We might
agenda?
as well conclude that as we've got the auditors and they can do the.
All right, so the motion would be that the board approve the audited financial statements for year ending June 30th, 2020, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Seconded by John George. Any questions, discussion from the trustees around the table? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Those against? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that. I believe, Terry, have you got any concluding remarks that you'd?
Not just thank you very much to Katie and Andrew and EY in general for their professionalism and sage advice through all of this. And it's been a great working relationship, and we look forward to continuing it. So thanks very much, folks.
As the chair, I can't wait for Kayenta to light up fully and do all the aspects of us, so it makes both the auditing role a little bit easier as well as our life to make sure that we can track and do all the assets. So that's a good thing, and we'll see that coming on stream over the next year. So that concludes the finance compete, and we'll go back to our first. Thank you for taking your time today to plug in. Enjoy it. I know it's probably snowing outside, but I'm sure you'll live with that. Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks now. Take care.
All right, so now we return to our regular order of business, and the first one is to the consideration of the minutes from September 26, 2020. Should be in the file in your piece, and people should have had the time to review that. Any questions or any errors or omissions that anyone has seen? If not, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Moved by Wince, seconded by Pam. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Those against? Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda would have been business arising, which there was none, so the next thing is the director's report.
Thank you, Chair. So this director's report will cover the following topics. First, we'll deal with the annual report for the third year, the final year of our strategic plan. As you know, we're now in the next iteration of a new 3-year plan, but this is the culmination, and that'll be sent up very shortly to government. Secondly, we'll comment on the entire process regarding reopening of schools, and finally a bit of a reflection on deep learning and where we're going with new pedagogies for deep learning. I'm constantly mining Twitter, our Twitter account with NLESD, and there's some brilliant stuff there. Really, the ones that catch my eye, I try to capture. This is a teacher at Rennie's River Elementary, not far from here, and this is a note that a child wrote her. And for those who can't see, it says, "This, folks, right here is the why. It's why teachers do what they do. This student shows up every day, eager, willing, and waiting to soak up every learning opportunity. Year made." And the note is, "Waking up and knowing I get to go to school each day. Awesome." And we got some really happy children out there to have our schools reopened. Nothing like being closed from March to motivate you. So, the strategic plan highlights. This is the third and last year, and really this covers the period up until June of 2020. So you all know our 3 goals. Once again, I would like to reiterate the work of the board, the influence of the board. In the third bullet is on leadership development, organizational effectiveness. Prior to this iteration of the strategic plan, it was always just organizational effectiveness. But actually having leadership development denoted there as a priority of yours has been very beneficial to us. Under the literacy domain, we've a strategic plan each year. We've successfully implemented the comprehensive literacy framework that we had for K to 6 and extended to grade 7 to 9 over these last 3 years. Of course, last year we implemented grade 9. Under the Education Action Plan of government, we are the beneficiary of 5 district-based program specialists now for phase 1 and 2 schools. The phase 3, it says here to be implemented. We're now into phase 3, and these are the culmination of all the positions. So you can see there's been quite a few teaching resources added to our complement to deal with and to enhance literacy throughout the province. In the numeracy area, the numeracy plan issued a number of strategies to support students, such as the implementation of a numeracy diagnostic assessment process, resources and professional learning to educators, including a variety of areas such as self-directed learning for teachers. Online student intervention resources were developed for math, grade 7, math, grade 8, and math, grade 9, and made accessible to the students via the Google account and our YouTube channel. And we've actually received many requests from other jurisdictions in Canada for use of those YouTube videos, which we've graciously said yes. And just a little vignette of math. We told teachers and asked teachers to take things outside. So there's a little bit of numeracy in geometry for young kids outside. And this is from St. Edward's School in CBS. So a little vignette there, just a small example of what learning outside has been, and just it's great to see. Okay. We don't need to see it again. Of course, other curricular areas have also been emphasized. A big push with respect to responsive teaching and learning. The district implemented the Department of Education's RTL plan during this strategic planning process. It provides guides for programming and the delivery of student-centered programs and service to support literacy, numeracy, and social emotional learning for students. 3-year implementation, year 1 was 18-19. We had 39 schools. Year 2, another 39, and now this year, the final 123 schools are being brought online to that new policy. In autism spectrum disorder, a lot of PL and resources deployed in support of learning for our children with autism. As well, we've had financial literacy partnership with the Canadian Foundation of Economic Education, some online resources to intermediate and high schools, and the Grade 7 2020 Money Fair Initiative and other resources. With respect to computer coding and technology, the district continued to support coding activities in schools, building on its plan with Brilliant Labs, an Atlantic Canadian experimental learning platform, and other CanCode partners to support coding in grades K to 6. And we've expanded into grades 7 to 12. The protocols were developed and implemented with Brilliant Labs and 7 other CanCode partners and posted on district websites. In this last school year, 142 classrooms received Brilliant Labs support in the form of hardware. In addition, 27 schools were approved for Makerspace support. This is some $4,000 worth of equipment for a total of 60 schools since 2018. And of course, Makerspace, some of you have seen it in action. We've demonstrated it before. It's a creative, technology-enhanced space that provides hands-on learning for students and staff and melds well with our focus on new pedagogies for deep learning. In the area of assistive technology, a lot of emphasis on professional learning. support for teachers. The total of 65 sessions were held with some 1,600 teacher participants in assistive technologies. Many of you have heard of our behavior tracking Review 360. Safe and caring direction is about creating enhanced school environments to ensure students can learn a safe, caring, and inclusive setting that supports physical and mental wellness. And that, of course, is all captured, the data is captured within Review 360. We continue to utilize that program, and it provides the school with the opportunity to analyze their own data, as well as the district to analyze macro-level data with respect to behaviors. The 2S LGBTQ+ initiatives, a number were implemented around this for students and staff, including a 4-year rollout of professional learning sessions to promote 2S LGBTQ+ awareness, Free to Be Me forums, support for the establishment of gender sexuality alliance groups. We've done GSA conferences, lesson plan developments for teachers, Pride Week celebrations, as well as changes to Power School to accommodate preferred name and gender to support schools to establish gender-inclusive washrooms as well. In the positive mental health arena, health and wellness, big piece of our work, social and emotional learning for parents and staff. It began as part of the implementation of the Comprehensive School Health and Wellness Framework, and the framework includes evidence-based mental health promotion, prevention, and integrated early intervention programs in schools. Quite a bit of work in this area. One example, trauma-informed practice. Professional learning was conducted on trauma-informed practice and school-based initiatives that support mental health during student services staff, which attended in the fall conference, and that was held by the Newfoundland Labrador Counselors and Psychologists Association. We're also have done a lot of professional learning with the under the Restorative Justice and Education Initiative. Those are just two examples. As well, we partnered with the Canadian Mental Health Association to promote Mental Health Week last May, and resources for students in school were made available, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Regarding accessibility, accessibility renovations under the safe and caring domain have been done to various washrooms, adding such things as grab bars, toilet kits and seats, lever handles. We got automatic doors being installed in a number of schools, installation of accessible washrooms. The district also purchased and installed accessible playground equipment at various schools throughout the province, and blue zone parking on school parking lots were established to provide accessible parking to students and families as per the new Building Accessibility Act regulations. In the area of occupational health and safety programming, we have our committees for certification, recertification, training, and meetings. A new policy has been developed for OH&S and the associated regulations, and we've developed mandatory occupational health and safety training tailored to health directives for the COVID-19 health emergency. In the area of transportation, student transportation, you've heard of Safe Pupil before. Of course, this is training for bus drivers in various domains. Professional driver improvement. Drivers completed the nationally certified professional driver improvement and defensive driver course. Emergency school bus training to bus drivers, and we did the emergency evacuation drills with students in the last school year. GPS as well. GPS has been purchased for the spring of this year and being implemented this year for increasing safety for school bus transportation. In the leadership area under organizational effectiveness, the Emerging Leaders Program was designed to identify future leaders, some 82 participants, and the focus for 2018-19 was on assistant principals, and for last year we focused on new principals. A number of electronic systems were also enhanced or added, auto calling replacement for unexpected vacancies for student assistants and secretaries. This is something we call SmartFind. Also, electronic hiring systems are now in place for over the years to include teaching and learning assistants as well as support staff and management positions. In the area of financial controls, some examples of improvements in fraud risk management protocol, implementation of new practices as per the Public Purchase Agency guidelines, and in school transportation procedures and practices. One example would be drivers encounters an unsafe road protocol. In schools, we established enhanced quarterly school financial review procedures as well. Now, the big one, and a lot of work, and thank you for the board support in this. This is really rocketing ahead. The district signed a contract in April of last year, or this year, sorry, for a new financial management system. You're familiar with the term Kayenta. It's a fully integrated system which was determined to be the best and most cost-effective program to address the multifaceted financial management needs of a large district. This acquisition was the culmination of several years' work to replace the district's outdated financial management system and the shortcomings which were made evident in the AG's report back in 2018. The targeted implementation date for Phase 1, which is the financial management and work management modules, is next July. And then the Phase 2, the HR and payroll, to be introduced in the year following. So that ends the report for the annual report, the third and final year. All the detail has been provided. It's in your package, the full report. With respect to September reopening, a lot of apprehension leading up into July and August of this year. And we're so delighted that we're able to start and launch and have a successful start to the school year. In fact, we're thriving. It was a tremendous amount of work to prepare schools for reopening. And I cannot mention enough of the individuals that I wouldn't be able to cover all the people that contributed so successfully to that. But suffice to say, COVID-19 protocols are in place to ensure the safety of all, and school communities are adhering to those procedures. And so far, we've been able to operate without any impact due to COVID-19, any serious impact to a disruption, to any requirement to shift from scenario 1 to 2 or 3. So we're just delighted with that. And I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot, a short video from one of our principals explaining the reopening. This is Principal Aubrey Daw from Beachy Cove Elementary.
Good morning and welcome to Beachy Cove Elementary School in beautiful Portugal Cove, St. Phillips. I've been invited to speak with you for a moment about our school's experience with our safe reopening plan, and it's a pleasure to do that, so come on in and we'll have a quick conversation. So a large part of our efforts this year focused on anxiety management, and we're now up to, we're approaching the end of November, and I'm happy to report that the anxieties that all of us experienced as we sought to prepare for a safe reopening and as we actually reopened, I'm happy to report that those anxieties have largely dissipated. They've either dissipated or we've become used to our new normal. And either way, our school is functioning very well. Our learners are enjoying being back to school. Our families are happy to have their children back in school. And we're delighted to be back at work with our kids as well. So now I want to take you down to one of our kindergarten classrooms, Madame Morris's kindergarten French immersion class, and we want to get from them firsthand exactly how they feel about being back to school. So follow me. So I thought it important that you get from our learners firsthand exactly how they feel about being back to school. After all, it's their place of learning, and let's go into Madame Morris's kindergarten class to see what they think. Hi everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Can you tell Mr. Daw how you all feel about being at school this year? Ça va bien, very good. Thank you very much, and we hope that gives you some insight as to how our school year has gone. It's gone very, very well despite all the pressures that we're all facing. So thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so a lot of people, a lot of moving parts to getting this year going. I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the cleaning protocols, but a big shout out to our facility staff under Terry's leadership. Done a tremendous job, and a lot of our custodial staff are appreciated for many different things that they do, little niceties like adding a bike rack or whatever. They often go above and beyond, and we're really proud of them and the work they've done to keep our schools clean and hygienic. And we'll hear from a custodian herself.
Hello, my name is Tracy Hurley, and I've been an employee with NLESD for a little over 5 years, and currently the temporary maintenance custodian at Bishop Abraham Elementary. I've been asked today to walk you through the new COVID safe distancing and sanitizing routine, which is currently being carried out in each NLESD school. To start off, we will follow our safe distancing directional arrows to the maintenance closet, where I will demonstrate how we prepare our daily sanitizing mixture of bleach and water for use throughout different areas of our school. We have 2 different mixtures that we prepare each morning. I will only be showing you one mixture, so stay within our video time allowance. All of our classrooms, including our phys ed and music room, receive a 1 ml bleach to 500 ml water ratio for use on desktops in between snacks and lunches, and also they're used to disinfect shared items being used by children throughout the day. So we have our bottle of bleach, our pipette for measuring, bring it up to the 1 ml, our bottle, which indicates 1 ml bleach, 500 ml water, and indicates that it's for desks. Squeeze your dropper full in. And fill your bottle. And these are distributed to each teacher at each classroom throughout the school. Only our custodial staff use a 10 ml bleach to 500 ml ratio for high touch areas such as handrails, door handles, washroom counters and fixtures, just to name a few. This ratio is used in the daytime by maintenance staff as well as by our evening custodians and cleaners who use a 2-step process on desks during their evening routine. This process includes cleaning desktops with general cleaner solution and following up with our 10 ml bleach solution, leaving the disinfectant solution to stand for 1 minute before wiping away. Now, to sum up this brief video, I'd like to note that all the COVID cleaning procedures put in place have been working to date, and all of our staff, including the extra workers hired due to the COVID budget allowance to ensure no school is without cleaning staff at any time, are fully trained to ensure proper cleaning is followed during each and every shift. Hello.
Okay, so it was great for her to do that for us. So under student transportation in the reopening, we all know the challenges we faced when we were plunged into a shortage of seats due to guidelines established by the Chief Medical Officer. And it was a huge task, a huge undertaking to resolve that. And once again, Terry's small but brilliant transportation staff really delivered. The busing issues were resolved now for all eligible riders. We've done the courtesy seating where we can, where available. It is a little bit different than last year. Some cases there's more available, some cases less. But it was a huge challenge to sort out, and I can nothing but praise for Terry and his small team for getting us to this place. Normally, something like that with the new contracts, new routes, would have taken months and months, and we're done in a matter of days and or weeks. But we're there now. It seems like it was ages ago. In the virtual learning arena, we have started a program called Connect Ed. And Connect Ed is a K-9 school offering remote learning to approve students who are immunocompromised or who have an immediate family member who is immunocompromised. Students are grouped with other students from across the school district and receive daily instruction from dedicated remote learning teachers. So virtual learning, we have currently 19 students availing of this service as per medical requirements, and current staff complement is 1 coordinator and 5 teachers. We also have an additional 11 students in the grade 10 to 12 area or high school who participate through CDLI. And I'll just show you a short video.
Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Mandeville and I'm the Provincial Lead for Remote Learning with the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District. Myself and the Remote Learning team are excited to share the beginning of our journey as we take a deep dive into remote learning. Our remote learning school is called Connect Ed, and we are currently offering learning opportunities for students who cannot attend school face-to-face as a result of COVID-19. Our model is based on the Scenario 3 of the Safe Return to School Reopening Plan that was released by the school district, and our daily learning activities are centered around 3 main ideas. And it's important to note that these aren't 3 distinct entities that our teachers are going to be exploring in a remote setting. Like the image demonstrates with the light bulb, these 3 things come together in our remote learning classrooms. So wellness, as an example, that's something that's integrated into our daily learning and assessment practices. Teachers are developing that culture for learning in their classrooms. They're getting to know the students' strengths and needs and interests. Students and teachers are co-creating projects and activities together in the classroom. And our assessment practices are also inclusive of wellness, in that our assessment practices are grounded in feedback. And teachers and students have that continuous dialogue where students understand where they are in relation to a learning goal. And they're having conversations with the teachers on best strategies and ways for them to meet their goal.
We are taking advantage of this opportunity to build relationships and find pathways of action that will result in better outcomes for our students. We are constantly asking ourselves the question, what kinds of skills and attributes do our students need to thrive in this complex world? How do we ensure equity? How do we attend to well-being? What have we learned from remote learning? And how can technology be best leveraged for learning in the future?
There will be bumps along the way for both educators and students. But at Connect Ed, we're ready to support each other and share our learning experiences this year. So get excited, reach out, and get ready to innovate and learn together.
So, lots of potential in Connect Ed, and paving and really shining the spotlight on where we need to go in education, not just in COVID times, but beyond. With respect to attendance, we've been tracking attendance and very apprehensive about how the COVID situation was going to impact. We know there's no prevalence within our school system, within our children and our staff at this point. However, there is a screening protocol, and people are adhering to the screening protocol, so we were expecting a rise in the absenteeism rate. However, the rise is not dramatic, as you can see. In September of 2019, 6.2%, and just a slight increase, well, almost 3% in September 2020. So still under 10%, which is not bad. For, frankly, a lot of apprehension and anxiety as we approached the reopening of schools. But things got even better in October. A little bit higher absenteeism rate in 2019 was 6.9%, but we're only 1% over that now for the month of October. So this is a good news story. With respect to extracurricular activities, the district always, in the provincial plan encouraged maximum normal activity where possible. So we took our time we evaluated this. We didn't move quickly. We wanted to see how things went. In October 13th, we allowed one sport after school up until the hour of 6 p.m. in the evening, and this was volleyball. Now, why volleyball? Well, it just happened to be volleyball was the season, the sport in season according to the School Sports NL calendar. We also, at the same time, allowed for after-school music programs as long as we could adhere to Chief Medical Officer's guidance. So we assessed that. There were no major hiccups, no major issues. We listened to teachers, parents, did a lot of consultation with School Sports NL, and decided that we would extend this, given the low prevalence currently, and that there was no impact from the early introduction, our little experiment in October. So right now, under School Sports NL, the current season of table tennis, indoor soccer, what we're saying, and volleyball is still continuing, what we're saying is that the sport in season has priority on gym use, but any other sport can occur if there's time allowed. And we've increased the time from 6 p.m. now till 7 p.m. to allow for parent coaches to come off work and do their thing. We've also heard a lot of cries for some sort of cumulative tournament activity on a sub-regional basis, which allowed then for Saturday tournaments. However, we've got strict protocols associated with that, half-hour breaks in between, no spectators, the custodial worker has to be on site. So we're taking a cautious, measured approach. We feel at this time that community use would be going a bit too far. We want to assess where we are. People ask why only 7 p.m., why can't we have the full evening? Well, we need time for our facility staff to finish up those parts of the facility that are in use, so that we can have a clean re-entry, as it were, for the next day. So extracurricular activities will continue to be monitored. If we find in a particular region or community that we had to revisit that, safety is always upper mind, and we will retract this if we have to. But we think it's a cautious, measured approach at this stage. Okay, just a little, this is an example of learning, I suppose. First slide is smiling students. Second slide is a sculpture they made as part of World Fisheries Day. And the third is a sculpture of their town, Trepassey, complete with lighthouse, docks, crab pots, fish and seal. And the group won a first place from the Provincial Department of Fisheries for Forestry and Agriculture for a competition. So we're very proud of them. Which bleeds into good at learning, good at life. We've been talking about this for some time and the evolution of this. It's our work with new pedagogies for deep learning has put us in good stead for operating in a COVID environment, in preparing to reopen schools and moving forward beyond COVID. In August, we held a Capacity Builders Institute with our senior staff, in the programs division and all divisions. The district is committed to deep learning. It's an educational approach that puts the increased focus on the process of learning, real experiential learning, and how students can demonstrate that acquired knowledge in ways other than through traditional assessment practices. This type of learning is really a paradigm shift from how education has traditionally been delivered in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. So we had over 100 members at this Facilities Institute that followed in the September-October area, and these staff are committed to supporting schools ready to learn more about how we create schools focused on well-being, learning, and engagement. This included sessions on the 6 global competencies and how to design deep learning. In November, you're all aware that normally we have meetings, leadership meetings, learning leader meetings we call them, with our various regional offices and gather all our principals there. This year we did it all virtually, and rather than have them segregated into Labrador, Central, Western, Avalon regions, they were mixed up in that cohort over 4 days, the week of November 9th to 14th, we held virtual sessions with the new Pedagogies for Deep Learning team. They were coming in from remotely from all over the world. And really it was a day-long invitation to schools as to where do we want to go with next steps. So schools, our administrators took that information back. They're going to have discussions at the school level and decide how fast or how slow, what support they need to go forward with our deep learning initiatives. So all 254 schools participated, and what happens next now is they're going to follow up with the director of school to indicate the level of interest in proceeding. This is an invitation. And the program teams that will help these schools will be supported by the new Pedagogies for Deep Learning team. A tweet from Michael Fullen. They're very, very pleased with the work that's happening in Newfoundland and Labrador. I've had accolades from Michael and his team. They've never met a group of teachers and educators more prepared, more with such a voracious appetite for this, for learning in this way. One teacher posted, or one principal posted, "Great day of learning with New Pedagogies team. My sticky point: teachers can be activators, culture builders, and collaborators." We got some great momentum here around deep learning. So the Good at Learning, Good at Life continues. December, again, as I said, the Family of Schools director will follow up with the administrators. In January, we'll have another Facilitators Institute, and then we'll be meeting through February of 2021 through to April with school teams, and in May we're planning on a virtual learning fair. So my compliments to Ed and the programs team, and Georgina is leading this, the district lead, Georgina Lake, for our AD for Student Services, doing great work, and we're forging ahead. So finally, a couple of Twitter photos. One from Labrador Straits Academy, shows kindergarten students demonstrating how important hydro workers are to our communities, thanking them as essential workers, doing a little display. And the second photo is the nurses at the neonatal intensive care unit at the Janeway. They were sent letters from grade 3 students who, of course, well received. Again, as a district, we acknowledge all of our essential workers in navigating through this COVID period. And it's great to see that our schools are acknowledging that and that they're being celebrated. So the letters to the nurses came from Bishop Abraham Elementary. So Chair, that sums it up with a photo from the beach in Holyrood. This is the view that Holy Cross Elementary gets to walk by every day. Beautiful spot. So subject to questions, sir, that is the director's report.
Thank you, Tony. Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes on that you don't see on a day-to-day basis as we traveled through this, but it's clear from the excitement, as I said this morning, about the staff that we have doing these particular projects, and their enthusiasm clearly delineates that something pretty special is going on within our schools and within our administrative leads. Any questions for Tony? Peter.
Thank you very much. Great presentation, Tony. I just have a question going back to Safe Caring Schools, I suppose, or our back to school. When the board discussed back to school earlier this year, we were working under the rules that were in place at that point in time for workers that are migratory workers. In October, I think it was October 20th, there was a revision made to the rules as they existed for kind of an exclusion, and that allowed migratory workers to self-isolate in a different way. In relation to what's happened in Grand Bank, I was wondering, we would be interested in going back to review it, because it could have been easily a classroom, not a senior's home, that was impacted, and it would appear to me to be a result of the new exemption that was put in place in September. And I think we need to relook at that and ask the chief medical officer to look at it as well. And it's making me nervous. It's not what we supported originally, and the change happened. So was there any consultations with us about that change before they announced it?
So, frankly, no, there wasn't. And again, you know, I certainly appreciate the complexities of the issues that the Health and Community Services and the Chief Medical Officer of Health's department are dealing with during this time, and it continues to evolve. But what normally happens, we have our plan, it's a live document, the return to school plan is still up on our website. So when health changes something, what they've done is we've got the links embedded in our document, and when health changes the information, it automatically updates on our site. We've asked questions surrounding, for example, there was a revision to the checklist. Health revised the checklist, and they employed it throughout the province. There's no real difference for schools and anywhere else, and it was updated as a link on our site. That said, we have asked for a meeting with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. That is scheduled for next week, Tuesday, I believe, Tuesday afternoon, just to update us as a school district at the staff level on, just give us an update on the medical picture and any advice for our plan. Obviously, the medical pieces that are embedded in our plan are simply that, medical pieces. We really don't have any discretion about what we can post, but we would like to have a conversation, and we will share the results of that deliberation when we have it.
Thank you, Tony. Any further questions for Tony on the director's report? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept it? Don't need it. All right, so we won't. Next on the item on the agenda is our committee reports, 6.1 executive. We didn't have an executive committee meeting, but I will give you notice now. We are going to have a short closed meeting after this session, and the paperwork associated with it is in your Google Share Drive that would have been at the same link that you had before, and I believe Elaine had sent out another link just for those people who are challenged finding their own emails, old emails. Peter? Sorry, did I say that? So therefore, finance and operations, we did do the audit piece, but I believe there's some more stuff that you need to address. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is the budget allocation for 2020-2021, even though we're almost out of 2020, but we still have to go back and do a bit of housekeeping on it. This budget actually includes the $20 million provided for technology, and as well as $19 million related to the operational for transportation as well. And having said that, I'd like to take a second to thank all the bus operators, both the district and the contractors, for stepping up. I know they spent a fair bit of time securing buses on the mainland and corralling them down here. And I know that Terry was on the phone late nights with Marine Atlantic, making sure that we had priority on the ferry getting across. So thank you for that, Terry, as well. As well, the IT staff for getting all the technology pieces up and running for the teachers and for future students when they get their Chromebooks in the next few weeks. So the motion coming out of that meeting is the board approved the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District's operating budget for the 12-month period from July the 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder for that, please? Seconded by John George. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Those against? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next motion is a bit of housekeeping from one of the schools. This is the school in Nippers Harbour. The town wants to actually take over the school, so we've got just a little bit of housekeeping on it to clear the path so that they can actually do that. So the motion is that the board approve the motion, or the notice of motion be brought forward regarding the closure of Bayview Primary in Nippers Harbour as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Tom. Discussion question? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Those against? Motion carries.
And part of that housekeeping is there's a notice of motion regarding Bayview Primary in Nippers Harbour. Whereas Bayview Primary in Nippers Harbour has not had children in attendance since at least June of 2013, And whereas maintaining ownership and control of the building and the land therefore possesses a liability to the district while providing no benefit, and whereas the town of Nippers Harbor has expressed interest in acquiring the building and property from the district association, or from the district, to use for community purposes, be it so resolved that Bayview Primary will close effective, and the date will come up. We have to have another meeting at some point in time where we would ratify this, and at that point in time we'll put the date for the closure on there. So, so moved.
What, set? March what? We need to set the date for
we
the
need to
notice
set
of
date?
motion needs the date of
Okay.
when we're going to meet it.
Sorry, okay, so we need to pick a date of what date? March? In our March meeting, okay. So this is a
Okay.
date set for that yet? March 6th. So moved.
Seconder, John George. Discussion? All in favor? Those against? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next motion is the board approve the transfer of the former Clarenville Primary School building and associated properties to the town of Clarenville for a nominal cost, with legal costs being borne by the district, subject to ministerial approval, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Seconded. Seconded by Ray. Discussion? All in favor? Those against? Motion carries.
The next motion is the board approve the department's request to phase in commercial rates charged to after-school programs as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Seconder, John George. Discussion? All in favor? Sorry, there was a hand. Were you voting for? Yeah.
No, I had a question. I agree if, and that's, I know it's been moved to a motion, but, you know, in light of the provincial government's latest announcement regarding to daycare subsidies and stuff like that, and some operators talking about how difficult it is for them to operate at that level, I'm not sure if adding more financial strain to these commercial daycares is perhaps the right thing to be doing right now. I mean, I could see in the future going up to tenders if you want to use the space or whatever, but it just seems halfway through the game, it's not fair to be doing that to them.
Steve?
Yeah, no, my understanding, Trustee Whittle, is that basically we're making the use of the school facilities more competitive to the, say, the commercial rates. But we've actually stepped back on this a little bit and sort of phasing in over a 3-year period as opposed to sort of hitting them all at once. So actually we went back and actually are working with the 3 or 4 operators that are renting space in our schools. So it's actually taking some of that burden back off of them again, which is why we went back and changed how we're doing it.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Those against? The motion carries.
And the final motion is the board approve the Finance and Operations Committee report of November 10th, 2020 as presented. So moved.
Seconder, John George. All in favor? Those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Steve, for that. The next committee on the report is the Programs and Human Resources, and I'm going to call on Trustee Ryan to give that update if you can.
Thank you, Chair. The last meeting we had a number of issues on the go, and there are going to be 2 motions come out of this meeting. The first item we had talked about was school violence away from the school property. We had asked staff to explore what the district is able to do regarding inappropriate student behaviour off school property. In the majority of cases, we know that off-site behaviour reflects itself inside the school. Policy references student behaviours that occur off school property, and that information is captured in Review 360. It's part of our Safe and Caring Schools plan. Second item was performance appraisal. The Human Resources staff are currently reviewing the performance appraisal process for all employees.
When I say all employees, I mean principals, teachers, everybody, right down the line to our custodial staff. And that work is ongoing. We also had, at that meeting, a presentation by Ms. Vanderville on the ConnectEd and visual learning. I don't think I need to say any more about that. We were as impressed as the rest of you, and it's now come up here 3 or 4 or 5 times today. It seems to be the direction that we're going in. The first item we had up for motion was the respectful workplace harassment, prevention and resolution policy. This is an update to the policy to reflect changes made to occupational health and safety regulations that were passed by government. Many of the requirements set out in the new OH&S regulations were already addressed in the district's respectful workplace and harassment prevention resolution policy, which forms the basis of this new prevention plan under the new OH&S regulations. The summary of amendments to this policy are: number 1, statements have been adjusted to ensure employees are aware of their obligation, and this is the word you have to keep in your mind, the obligation to report observations of inappropriate conduct. It's no longer employees should, or they are morally right in doing so, they are obliged to report observations of inappropriate conduct. Secondly, supervisors, management, school administrators are now obliged to intervene if they become aware of alleged harassment or discrimination. Thirdly, employees are obliged to report observed instances of workplace harassment to their manager. And lastly on this, third-party harassment by contractor, student, parent, guardian in the workplace will not be tolerated, and employees who experience harassment will bring the issue to their immediate supervisor or school administrator. I move that the board approve the amended Respectful Workplace and Harassment Prevention Resolution Policy as recommended by the Program and Human Resources Committee. Begging a seconder.
Seconded by Scott. Discussion? All in favour? Those against? Motion carries.
Thank you. The second item up for motion is a policy around prevention of workplace violence. The district is committed to a respectful workplace through fostering prevention and prompt resolution of harassment and discrimination. There is one change to this policy. In summary, the new policy statement highlights the district's obligation to protect employees from family violence that would likely expose a worker to physical injury that may occur in the workplace. So now it's the district who is obliged to protect. I move the board approve the amended Prevention of Workplace Violence policy as recommended by the Programs and HR Committee. Begging a seconder.
Seconded by Pam. Questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries.
Lastly, Chair, I move the board approve the Programs and HR Committee report as presented today.
Can I get a seconder? Peter, all in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you to the chairs of or the presenters of those committee reports and the work that they do, because that's really where a lot of the substance of the board gets done as it is presented, as it's developed and presented to us at these meetings. Next point is new business understanding. Item 7.1, Education Foundation. There's no report. 7.2, NLESD report. There is not one because they didn't meet. But under 7.3, we've got our star from out west. And it's going to be our School Milk Foundation report, and Eric is going to be on. We're at bated breath.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start by commending all those trustees who allowed their names to be put forward for various positions. It's nice to see so much interest. And the School Milk Foundation met on June 10th, not July 10th. Well, we didn't meet, we met virtually. The meeting was held virtually. And there are just 3 points that I want to mention. I had mentioned earlier that we had enlisted, the School Milk Foundation had enlisted Kim Myrick and Thomas Cooper to do a strategic review. Well, these individuals at that meeting made recommendations in 5 different areas. One was School Milk Foundation relations with government. 2, positioning on food security. 3, School Milk Foundation partnerships. 4, School Milk Foundation approach to schools, and education and promotions of the School Milk Foundation. The final report, I guess, will be presented next month at the next meeting. Okay. 2, Mr. Moore's looked at school milk sales, the school milk sales report, and obviously sales were down. In fact, sales were down some 50%. That's from January to June. Obviously, one reason was the School Lunch Association removing chocolate milk from the menu. And of course, the big reason was COVID-19, which closed schools from March until June. And thirdly, the School Milk Foundation made a donation of 35,000 liters of milk to the Community Sharing Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. So that was the 3 main things on our agenda at that time. And I'd like to move that the board would adopt this report.
Thank you, Eric. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Pam. Any questions? I thought he was going to congratulate all the trustees that drank milk at the beginning of it, but he didn't do it. But no, chocolate milk, yeah. So can I get those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Eric. The next item on our business is the formal annual report piece, and we look to Susan, manager of our policy, please, to present.
Thank you. The 2019-20 draft annual report for the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District is being presented today for approval in principle. The annual report represents the 3rd and final year of the district's 2017-2020 strategic plan. As such, it's a summative document which reports on the overall goals for all 3 strategic directions, as well as the objectives for the 2019-20 year. It is presented today for the Board of Trustees' approval in principle. The report will be submitted to the provincial government for review and subsequently tabled in the House of Assembly in March 2021. Any substantive changes will be brought back to the Board for approval.
Okay, are there any questions? Hearing none, we need the motion to accept the report. Is moved by Steves. Sorry, what have I got done wrong? Sorry, Hayward. I will apologize for that because the residual responsibility. Sorry. Hayward.
Okay, not a problem. I move that the board approve the draft annual report 2019-2020 as presented, acknowledging that there may be some small changes proposed following a provincial government review.
Thank you for that, Hayward. Seconded by Steve. Questions? No discussion, therefore. All in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries. Thank you, and thank you, Susan. As we normally do at this time, there has been some correspondence that's coming and going from to the district and from the district. Obviously, 2 pieces of that was the announcement that 2 new trustees had been elected, and we're happy, we're glad for that. And are there any questions from any of the trustees regarding any of the correspondence listed? Hearing none, we can move on. So At this stage of the game, the public session point of the meeting, we're going to adjourn to a closed meeting. So can I get a motion to adjourn? And then we'll go into closed meeting once we've set up. Moved by Ray, seconded by John George. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.